didn't realize how quiet the house really was until I heard my name come through the vent. It started on a Friday night, the first time I had ever stayed home completely alone. My parents had driven out to visit my older sister in college, and I had practically begged them to let me stay behind. I was 17, responsible and confident that a weekend with the house to myself would be relaxing. I imagined late-night movies, junk food, and no one yelling at me to take the dog out. They finally agreed, reluctantly, and left that afternoon around 2. By nightfall, the house had already taken on a strange stillness that felt deeper than silence. It was like the walls were holding their breath. I was in the kitchen finishing up a bowl of cereal when I heard it for the first time, faint. So faint I thought it was the dog shifting around upstairs. But the sound came again soft, like a whisper. A word. No, a name. My name. Emily. I stopped moving. The spoon froze in my hand. I listened hard, every muscle stiff. The sound hadn't come from upstairs. It had come from the floor vent in the hallway near the kitchen. I waited, half convinced I had imagined it. But then I heard it again. Emily. This time it was clearer. Not loud, not aggressive. Just there. Like someone crouched in a dark place, calling gently through a grin. I didn't respond. I didn't move. The dog Charlie lifted his head and looked at the vent, ears up. He growled once. I took a deep breath and told myself it had to be the heating system making weird noises. Houses do that, right? Old pipes, expanding metal, maybe even echoes from outside. I shut off the kitchen light and took Charlie with me into the living room, curling up with a blanket and trying to distract myself with TV. But the voice didn't stop. An hour later, while flipping through Netflix, I heard it again. Emily. Closer now. Like it was coming from the living room vent this time. I muted the TV. The voice repeated. Emmy Illy. Sing-song. My skin crawled. My chest tightened. I turned every light on in the house and walked from room to room, checking locks, windows, and closets. Everything was closed. Everything was locked. I stood in front of one of the floor vents and stared at it, waiting. I called my parents. My dad picked up on the second ring, and I tried to laugh it off at first, explaining that I thought I heard something in the vents. Probably nothing, I said, but my voice was shaking. It just keeps saying my name. There was a pause. Then my dad said very quietly, You heard it in the vent? Yeah, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Why? He didn't answer at first. I could hear the hum of the road through the phone, then my mom asking what was wrong in the background. Finally, he said, That's where we used to hear it, too. I froze. What? When your sister was your age, he continued, barely above a whisper. She said she heard voices in the vents. We thought she was dreaming or it was just old pipes. She was always kind of imaginative, you know. But your mom and I heard it once too. We never told you. I sat down slowly, my entire body cold. My dad cleared his throat and added, We had the vents cleaned, sealed the crawl space, even had someone check the attic. They didn't find anything. It eventually stopped. But now it's back? I asked, eyes on the dark metal grate across the room. We'll come home first thing in the morning, he said quickly. Just keep the doors locked and try not to listen to it. I didn't sleep that night. I left every light on and kept the dog with me in my bedroom. Around 2:30 a.m. the house went quiet again. I almost thought it was over until I noticed the floor vent in my room. It was near the dresser, half covered by an old area rug. Charlie suddenly sat up, ears stiff, and growled. I looked over, and even before I heard it, I knew it was coming. Emily. It was right under me now. That same soft, deliberate tone, like someone whispering through cupped hands. My name drawn out and sweet, as if the voice was enjoying every syllable. I stood up and backed into the corner, clutching my phone. I dialed 911 with trembling hands, but before I could hit call, the voice said something new. I'm already inside. I dropped the phone. I yanked Charlie by the collar and bolted out of the room. I didn't look at the vent. I didn't look behind me. I ran to the garage, got into my mom's old Honda, and locked the doors. I spent the rest of the night in the car, lights on, key in the ignition, hands shaking. Charlie curled up in the passenger seat and didn't move. I kept thinking about what the voice said. Already inside? Not I'm coming in, already. My parents came home just after sunrise. My dad didn't even ask what happened. He just walked straight to the garage and looked at me through the window, like he already knew. I couldn't bring myself to go back inside, not for days. They had the house inspected again. The vents were clean. No signs of intrusion, no recordings, no damage, no explanation. Just a lingering silence that made the walls feel like they were watching. We replaced the vents later that month. But sometimes when the heater clicks on late at night and I'm lying awake, I swear I can still hear it. The faintest echo beneath the hum. My name still being whispered. The power went out during one of those deep, bone-rattling thunderstorms, the kind where the sky doesn't just flash with lightning, it throbs with it, pulsing like something alive overhead. I had been home alone for maybe 2 hours. My mom was stuck at her overnight nursing shift, and my dad was out of town for work. I was 17, perfectly capable of taking care of myself, or so I thought. I had just finished eating dinner and was halfway through a movie when the lights died with a click, plunging the house into instant, suffocating darkness. There was no warning, no flickering beforehand, just that one final snap as the entire house gave up its glow, leaving only the low growl of thunder rolling in from the woods behind our property. For a few moments I sat frozen on the couch, waiting to see if the lights would flicker back on. They didn't. The storm raged outside, fat raindrops pelting the windows like fingers drumming urgently to be let in. I grabbed my phone, but of course the service was terrible, and the Wi-Fi was gone. Just one bar, barely clinging to life. I made my way carefully through the house, grabbing a few candles from the cupboard and lighting them with one of those long fireplace lighters. The flickering glow cast giant, swaying shadows across the living room walls, and the silence between thunderclaps felt too wide, too heavy, like something was listening in the hush. I placed the candles on the coffee table and stood there a moment, trying to shake the growing tightness in my chest. Storms didn't normally bother me. I used to love them as a kid, even falling asleep to the sound of rain. But this one felt different. Not louder or stronger, just wrong. The silence between flashes was too still. The shadows felt like they moved when I wasn't looking directly at them. I sat back on the couch and tried to distract myself with my phone, watching the battery tick lower and lower. That's when I saw it. At first I thought it was lightning, a quick flash of light in the corner of the window, but it wasn't white or blue like lightning. It was orange. A spark, then another. I turned slowly toward the back window, the one that looked out onto the yard behind the house, where the tree line started. In the next flicker of light, I saw a shape standing at the edge of the yard. Someone was out there. They were holding something in their hand, raising it to their face, and in the brief burst of flame that followed, I saw it clearly. A lighter. He was using a lighter. The flame flared, held there for a second longer than necessary, just long enough to reveal his face. Pale skin, wide grin, eyes that didn't blink. He was staring straight at me. I stumbled backward from the window, nearly knocking over one of the candles. The flame on his lighter went out. Darkness, then another flicker, the same face, still smiling, still staring. He hadn't moved. I ran to the front door and checked that it was locked, then did the same for the back. All secure. I pulled the curtains shut and tried to tell myself it was just someone passing through, maybe a prank. But who would be out there, in the rain, in the woods, with a lighter? And why hadn't they moved? Why were they just watching? I ducked away from the windows and stayed low, crawling back to the living room like I was in some kind of survival movie, trying to avoid being seen. I turned off the candles. I figured if I couldn't see him, maybe he couldn't see me. But then the lighter came again, this time outside a different window closer. He had moved. The flame flared up and vanished, flared up again, and each time I saw him, he was smiling wider. His teeth looked too straight, too white, like they didn't belong to someone living in the woods or lurking during storms. I don't even know how long I crouched there, staring at the black window and waiting for the next flash. Sometimes it came, sometimes it didn't. I lost track of how many windows he circled. He never knocked, never tried the doors. Just flicked that damn lighter and grinned whenever I saw him. Eventually, I worked up the courage to crawl to the hallway closet and grab the baseball bat my dad kept by the door. I didn't know what I'd do with it, but it made me feel slightly less helpless. I stayed like that for what felt like hours. The thunder faded, the rain softened, but the flashes continued. At some point I must have passed out, curled up under the dining table like a scared animal. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window and the hum of the refrigerator kicking back on. The power had returned. The storm was gone. But the outside of the windows told another story. There were muddy footprints all around the house, too many to count. Some of them circled the same spots over and over, as if he had been pacing, waiting, watching. I told my mom when she got home. We called the police. They said they'd send someone to patrol the area for the next few nights. But there wasn't much they could do. No break-in, no damage, no face on the security camera. He'd somehow stayed out of range the whole time. And the thing is, nothing else happened after that night. No stranger, no flickers, no signs. But that doesn't make it feel over. Because now, whenever the power goes out and I see the shadows stretch across the windows, I can't help but look. And I swear sometimes I still see that flicker, that little flame, that smile waiting just beyond the glass, knowing the power might go out again, knowing next time I might not be so lucky. I've never believed in ghosts or anything supernatural, really. I'm the kind of person who laughs at horror movies, says things like, "That would never happen," and rolls my eyes at people who say their house is haunted. I used to be, but something happened one night that I can't explain, and no matter how many times I try to forget it or rationalize it, I still feel the hair on the back of my neck rise every time I walk into the kitchen. It was a completely normal night. My parents had gone out for the evening, some dinner with my dad's co-workers, and I had the house to myself. I'd done this plenty of times before, so it didn't feel like a big deal. I even kind of looked forward to it. The quiet, the empty house, the freedom to blast my music or play video games as loud as I wanted without anyone yelling at me. Around 9:45 I got hungry and went down to the kitchen to heat up some leftover lasagna. The house was quiet, except for the soft humming of the refrigerator and the occasional creak that old houses make when they settle. The lights were all on, and my dog, a big yellow lab named Max, was curled up in the living room snoring. Everything was normal. I pulled the lasagna out of the fridge, tossed it on a plate, and stuck it in the microwave. I punched in 3 minutes, pressed start, and leaned against the counter to wait. You know how, when you're bored, your eyes just sort of wander? I wasn't even really thinking about anything, just zoning out, watching the plate spin inside the microwave. That's when I noticed the reflection in the microwave door. At first, I didn't think much of it. You know how reflections in curved surfaces can get distorted. It just looked like a shape of vague, pale blur behind me, near the doorway to the kitchen. But then I realized it wasn't a shape caused by the room or the light. It was a face, pale, expressionless, just floating there behind me in the reflection, like someone standing completely still. I froze. I didn't turn around right away. I just stared at it in the microwave door, my mind trying to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. The longer I looked, the more I could make it out. Hollow cheeks, wide eyes, lips slightly parted like it was mid-breath. And then it did something that still makes my skin crawl. It tilted its head. My body turned before I could stop it. I spun around so fast I nearly knocked the plate off the counter. But there was nothing there, just the doorway to the hall, leading to the living room where Max was still asleep. I looked back at the microwave. The face was gone. My own reflection stared back at me, pale and tense, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. I laughed kind of. That short, nervous laugh you let out when you're trying to convince yourself you're not losing it. I told myself I'd imagined it. Maybe a reflection from the TV in the other room. Maybe I'd seen my own face distorted and scared myself. I walked to the living room, checked the front door, and made sure it was locked. Same with the back door. All the windows were closed. Everything was secure. I even turned the microwave off and decided I wasn't hungry anymore. But I didn't go back upstairs. I stayed in the living room with Max, watching TV with the volume a little too loud, just to drown out the silence. Every few minutes I would glance toward the kitchen. Nothing, just shadows and light, the same as always. I ended up falling asleep on the couch. Around 2 I woke up to the sound of the microwave beeping. That long drawn-out tone it makes when the timer ends, but I hadn't turned it on. I sat up, heart pounding, trying to tell myself I must have accidentally pressed something earlier. But 3 hours late? That didn't make sense. Max was up now too, standing stiff, ears perked, staring toward the kitchen with his tail low. That was the part that scared me the most. Dogs don't fake fear. I got up slowly and crept toward the kitchen. The microwave's digital display was blank. Not flashing, not showing any numbers. Just off, like it hadn't been touched. The plate of lasagna was still inside, now cold. I didn't open it. I backed out of the room, grabbed my phone, and called my mom. It was almost 3 in the morning, and she answered in a panic, thinking something had happened. I didn't tell her about the face. I just asked when they were coming home. She said they'd be back the next morning. I stayed up the rest of the night with all the lights on, sitting on the floor with Max pressed against my leg. Every time I looked at the microwave, I saw nothing but my own reflection. But I couldn't stop looking. The next day, I didn't mention anything to my parents. I didn't want them to think I was crazy. But a week later, when my mom asked if I cleaned the inside of the microwave, I finally told her what happened. She went quiet. Then she asked, very carefully, if I had ever heard about the man who used to live in our house before we moved in. I said no. She told me he died in the kitchen, alone, slumped over on the floor in front of the counter right where I had been standing. Now I can't look at the microwave without seeing that reflection again in my head, that pale, still face. I've stopped using it completely. I don't even reheat leftovers anymore. And sometimes when I pass by the kitchen late at night, I swear I hear the soft beep of the timer just once, like it's waiting, like someone inside is still watching.